Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Entra Domain Services, right? So you might have seen that, or you might have been using, maybe if in case you have come out of the on-premises environments, or if you are going to do it going forward, or maybe that's the future goal, and that totally depends on the organization requirements and the project requirements, and there are many different scenarios and use cases, right? Why companies or businesses would use Microsoft Entra ID domain services. Not ID, basically, it's a Microsoft Entra domain services service, which is a part of Microsoft Azure, right? So I'm going to talk about it, and as an Entra domain services, what it does really, and how it is going to help the organizations to use it, as well as what is it what it is going to solve the problems, right? That is the main reason when companies or businesses think about moving from on-premises to cloud, and how it is going to be used, right? And how it is going to solve the problems for us, right? That's the main key here, to understand and know, and do the assessment and planning, and then also look after the all the controls, right? So from security standpoint, from management standpoint, the management overhead and everything together, how we can manage it, what are the capabilities it can provide us, and how that can be effectively used, right? So let's go through about the Entra Domain Services and what is it exactly. So Entra Domain Services is a managed service within Azure, right, which provides us the domain joint as well as group policy management. It is a lightweight directory access protocol, which is LDAP, which also supports the on-premises AD, and it also supports the Kerberos and NTLM authentication, right? So all of these are the part of legacy authentication area, we can say, right? And those are the capabilities which are part of Entra Domain Services, and that Microsoft has built that on top of Azure cloud. And by using that one, we can bring on our on-premises systems or application to the cloud and use it from there, right? Also, what are the other capabilities of this and how it works, right? So it works like a Entra ID, right? And we can use it as a directory service without maintaining its underlying infrastructure. So underlying infrastructure includes the domain controller, which we called as a DCs, right? And then it also provides the high availability for us as we move from on-premises to cloud within Azure, right? And we get the uh, full control, not the full control, but we get the full high availability of those servers, and those servers are managed by Microsoft Azure from the backend side, right? And deployment and management and patching of those data centers or domain controllers is being taken care by Microsoft. So we as a customer, we don't have to do anything except just using it and initial setup of that domain controller for us to use those capabilities like LDAP, Kerberos, NTLM authentication, group policy, and domain joining capabilities, right? Right. So those are the capabilities which we can use, and we can run those applications. So what are those applications which we would be using with Entra Domain Services, right? So applications, those are hosted on premises, and those are pretty legacy systems or legacy applications which completely rely on NTLM, Kerberos, and LDAP protocols, right? So those are the legacy protocols, and that is when those are not supported with specifically direct to the Entra ID, and that is why we need to make sure migrate those into the cloud, and then we can use the Entra Domain Services as an NTLM, Kerberos, and the LDAP capabilities, and then we can leverage those legacy applications for the businesses, right? As all those applications are not supported with the modern authentication methods, and those are the part of Entra ID, right? And that is why we need to use, and we need to support, and we need to get into the Entra Domain Services to make use of that. So what are the strategies that we can use for use or move from on-premises environment to the Entra Domain Services, right? So strategy is simple. Mostly you will see the strategy which is called as lift and shift for those legacy applications from on-premises environment to the managed domain within Azure Entra Domain Services, right? And by lifting those applications and shifting those to the Entra Domain Services, it is pretty straightforward, but definitely there are few steps that we need to take care beforehand and do it carefully, so that we are going to make sure that the usage is appropriate, and we look into it closely so that we know what is expected, what we are going to do, right? And Entra Domain Services integrates with your existing Entra Domain or Entra tenant overall to synchronize the identities and access levels, so that not completely access level, but at least at certain level when identities would be synchronized, and then we can provide users access to those applications which were hosted on premises earlier, and now we have moved to the Entra Domain Services, and people would be able to access all those applications from that specific DNS, specific domain controllers, which we have provisioned under the Entra Domain Services, right? Also, we can make sure synchronizing specific groups, user accounts, and we can leverage this smoother strategy, which is lift and shift from on-premises to Azure. Now, let's look at how does it work, right? So when we create Entra Domain Services, which is a managed domain, right? And what it does, it has a unique namespace is being created automatically, right? So that has been created by Microsoft for us and is managed by Microsoft as well, right? So we don't have to do anything there. And it also allows us to select a specific region wherever we wanted to host that domain controller for us, and then we can leverage it for our requirements. Also, it creates another DC, which is another separate domain controller, which is called as a replica set, which also gives us a high availability for our workloads, and then it also handles all the workloads in balance between one and another, right? And it also provides the capabilities of backing up as well as encryption and all the capabilities to manage the data disk, and Azure is encrypting all the disks which are hosted on those domain controllers, right? So it is doing all of that stuff for us, which is backing up the servers, also putting encryptions, then taking backup of disk as well as encrypting those disks on those domain controllers, right? Now let's look at the information synchronization. So how the data is being synchronized. Now there's an architecture which is pretty straightforward, which is kind of, let's say, once we have hybrid environment between on-premises AD to the Entra ID, right? What we are doing is we are syncing identities, including users, groups, passwords, IDs, OUs, service principals, and all of that stuff, right? And now we are synchronizing everything together, and we are making sure usage is happening between both, right? But now when we are synchronizing or moving out of on-premises to Azure with the Entra Domain Services, then what we will be doing is we will be making connection between Entra ID and Entra Domain Services. And there is only a one way or single flow diagram or single flow of synchronization of identities from Entra ID to Entra Domain Services. So there is no bidirectional interaction or bidirectional synchronization at all, right? So this is how we can synchronize the identities as well as groups and everything all over from Entra ID. And then we can provide the access to all those services, or basically the application of that specific domain controller, whichever we are using within the Entra Domain Services for that specific legacy applications, right? So we would have a bunch of features, which includes domain join capability. We would be able to join those domain controllers within our domain for the legacy as well as for any application capabilities with our Entra Domain Services, along with Entra ID, right? And then we can use the group policy, LDAP, Kerberos, and NTLM authentication methods, right? So these are the major capabilities of the Entra Domain Services that are really helpful for us to use and make use of Entra Domain Services for us, right? So yeah, that is all for this video. I wanted to convey through this video and uh, tell you about how the Entra Domain Services is really helpful, is going to be used for different use cases. And there are not many use cases. I haven't covered many, but I have talked more about the legacy application as well as the capabilities of Entra Domain Services that we can use and leverage, right? So yeah, that's all for this video. Hope you will like it. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and watch other videos around Azure 365, FinOps, and Okta as well. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.